Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kylie Burton. If you have been told that your blood work is normal, yet you feel awful, well, this is the place for you, because whether you have a diagnosis or not, I'm going to teach you how to turn those normal labs into real answers, healing, and hope. So grab your blood work. Come join me. Here we go. We are back. So you've heard her story. Now it's time to figure out, is there a solution? And if so, what is it? Brooke has sent me her labs, and we're going to go over labs together in a very, we'll just see how it feels. I'm going to try to correlate what I'm seeing with her story. So, Brooke, it makes sense to you, and then you'll figure out, like, okay, now what can we actually do about it? And here's the thing. When I look over this blood work, I'm going to read it in a perspective where, like, you have the normal lab ranges, right? In my head, I have the functional lab ranges. So they're smaller, they're condensed. But for this purpose, we'll probably just go off of the green and the blue. The blue and the red, with a couple tweaks that I know that I've already seen as I glanced through them earlier. Think about everything that we talk about as puzzle pieces. The more puzzle pieces we have, the better, because that means we can put your puzzle together. And at the end, after we go through your blood work, I'm going to map out what's the approach. How do we go from, okay, here's the story, here's how you feel, here's what the blood work says, now let's actually go after a healing journey. And it can take, we like to do things in 90-day increments now, so we can do 90 days and just see what happens, and then we can go after the next 90 days and so on and so forth. But I get a lot of traction in 90 days with the way that we have our programs built now and with what I've seen. I want to show you what's inside your blood work and how things are all correlating together. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
So this is your marker, your labs from about a year ago. Right off the bat, we're going to look at the thyroid markers here. So we have TSH, which is 0.09. I like to see the TSH between 1.8 and 3. So we're depleted, which is probably going back towards that medication that it's telling your body to shut up and not produce this stuff. So it's probably been altered from the medication. But what really catches my eye is this, what we call the TPO, thyroid peroxidase antibodies. Has anybody ever said Hashimoto's to you?
I'm learning. So Hashimoto's, I was always thought that Hashimoto's was the other way, right? So that the hypothyroid versus the hyperthyroid. Other than that, I'm assuming they're just overcorrected. But that's me.
Yeah. The totem poles are swinging so far left and right with you. The biggest thing is, no matter whether we call it that or not, I don't care, because the immune system is attacking your thyroid, period. Right? That's the Graves, that's the Hashimoto's, either one of them. So the real trick is figuring out, why is your immune system so depleted? Because like you said, you get any infection you get, it's just magnified times 1,000 within minutes, basically. So we're going to go out and figure out how come the immune system is so depleted. And I've got some answers for you here and why in the blood work. Right off the bat, we see glucose at 89, which is in the sweet spot between 88 and 100. So your blood sugar in the moment was stabilized. Next up, we have BUN and creatinine. These are kidney markers, so those look great. Same thing with the EGFR. Sodium marker is a 140. I like to see between 135 and 140, which you're sitting right there on the border. That would be your adrenal correlation. Adrenals produce cortisol, and cortisol is responsible for that. I'm going to wake up feeling rested, and I'm going to be able to fall asleep at night. In your case, it's probably, if you were to take a cortisol sample, an actual saliva test, I would be curious to see what it would say, but I don't think we need it for treatment purposes, because we use a supplement that adapts to whatever your body needs, so we don't necessarily have to have the test anymore. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Potassium is also another marker that's correlated to adrenals. I like to see potassium 3.5 to 4. So we're outside of that range, which would be adrenal fatigue. Also, one factor on why you're like, please give me some energy. Just one factor though, not like end all be all. Chloride looks great. Carbon dioxide looks great. Calcium, I want to see it at 9.2 to 10. So 9.2 is on the low end border for me. With the functional ranges, remember those are tighter than these normal ranges that we're seeing. That would be a direct correlation to vitamin D. And I know you're in Tampa, but I also know that we don't synthesize vitamin D from the sun very efficiently anymore. So I'll be curious to see if we have a vitamin D status on here, and I'm pretty sure we do. Total protein is a marker for gut. Slightly high. I like to see it around 6.8. So it's at 7, not bad. These are it's more of a marker for, is your body able to absorb the food you're eating? Do you feel like that's the case?
I mean, I can't say I have a lot of gut issues. I mean, I don't feel like I have a lot of gut issues, but I don't necessarily know if I would know that. I mean, I've always had like constipation issues since I was a baby, so I don't think I've ever known what it was actually, what's normal and what's not. So, or what's normal for me and what's not.
That is really good to know. Albumin, globulin, those look great. The A to G ratio, total bilirubin, alk-Phos, those all look awesome. AST and ALT, these are liver markers, and those are like, couldn't get any better. Are you taking any vitamin D?
No, not at the moment. I was, with my first endocrinologist, I was on, a D2 supplement and a D3 supplement. And then he's like, you don't need these anymore. And he pretty much took me off of everything. And then I tanked. So I'm at a new endocrinologist now, and she hasn't done anything like, she hasn't given me any sort of, supplements I need to take or anything like that. So, I'm not.
If you've taken them in the past, do they help? Do they not help?
I don't see any difference. I mean, the only difference I can see in any of this is labs.
Okay. Do you react negatively to them? Have you had like side effects or anything?
No, nothing to me that was noticeable in either direction. So it's not like I take a B12 and I'm bouncing off the walls. That's never been a thing. So caffeine does almost nothing for me. And it never has. You know, like when kids or when teenagers were drinking Mountain Dew back in the day when Mountain Dew was a thing, I could drink a Mountain Dew and nothing. So I feel like I have a high tolerance for nothing. or for everything. I don't know for sure. But
count your blessings, because a lot of people will say that the opposite. They're like very, very sensitive to anything. And that makes it a long journey. You have to go very low and very slow. When you say like, oh, I don't react to anything, it's like, oh, okay. Let's see about that. Just kidding.
Oh, hey, I'll tell you if something's weird. I know my body well enough to be like, yeah, something's happening and it's a good something or it's not.
So my vitamin D perspective is I like to see things 80 plus. I don't even worry if it gets over 100. And one of the biggest reasons why I want to jack this up fast in you is because of that immune system. I'm going to give you some doses in our plan that are probably like, don't tell your doctor that because they'll think I'm crazy. But you will notice a difference with this stuff.
Okay.
And hopefully the goal would be, along with this and other components with your immune system, is that one, every cycle you have doesn't create a yeast infection. And two, you're not afraid to breathe someone's cold air and get the cold for 2 months. Vitamin D is at 31. And I've seen them like in the teens. And it's crazy because no one will bat an eye at it. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. we have a depleted immune system. Vitamin D is the number one requirement for immune systems. Let's make sure we get it what it needs. And you'll find that when you go back to take a lab test, because you're probably getting regular lab tests yearly, are you?
I'm getting them every 4 months right now.
Holy smokes. Okay, this will be awesome. Oh, this is going to be a good before and after. You get the lab test. When is your next lab test?
I think it's mid-May.
Okay, so we got a month. That's almost perfect timing. So go take your lab test, your blood work, and then message it to me. And I'll see if we need to make any tweaks, but I highly doubt it. Then right after that, we will just start our 90-day program. Then you'll be able to go take that test again in the next 4 months. And not only see from a numbers perspective, but from how you feel too.
Yeah.
I just want to give you a heads up that your vitamin D is probably going to be approaching the 100 marker by the time you take that post-supplement lab. And depending on who it is, they might freak out. Just don't freak out. They'll be like, okay, thanks for your concern. Kind of thing. All right, testosterone. This is total T, so 30. And again, it's depending upon where you are in your cycle. So we'll take that for kind of a grain of salt. Going back to thyroid markers here with total T4, free T3. Those look pretty good. It was the TSH and the TPO antibodies that were tanking or fluctuating so much. All right, do you see this white blood cell count? This gets into the good stuff. This is what I call the lab test worth the price of gold, when you know how to read it right. So the white blood cell count, I want to see between 5 and 8. And you're at 5.3, so it looks pretty good. I want to double check, though, with the infection markers below, because you say like you're constantly fighting infections, yeast infections every month. The problem with the yeast infections is that a fungal infection doesn't show up in the blood work specifically, but all the other infections do. So we can see if there's co-infections going on, which there typically are. So red blood cell count, that looks great. Same thing with the rest of your red blood cell markers, which when you say, I could take a B12 and it doesn't do anything for me, that's probably good. What we're seeing here is that your B vitamins are used. Some people don't have they have a hard time using those B vitamins. Yours are getting used from these labs anyways.
Oh, my body's doing something then.
Our body's doing something. And about iron, according to these markers, your iron would be good too. I don't know if we have an iron panel on here. Have you ever been told you have iron anemia or a deficiency in iron or anything of the like?
No.
All right, these markers look great. We get down here into the good stuff. Where are we at? Right there. Absolute neutrophils, we want percentages. Do we have percentages? I know we do, right there. Hey, if you're new here, welcome aboard. If you're coming back, welcome back. I'm coming back as well. In fact, we're going to have new episodes every Wednesday right here on the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast. If you love what you just listened to and love what you've been listening to, I would be honored to have you leave a review. Leave it on the place where you listen to your podcast, so that way more people can find this podcast and get answers from their blood work as well. I'm Dr. Kylie, and I'll see you next week.